back to the Prodigy Way podcast. Dad, thanks so much for joining me. Everybody, this is my father, Russell Grammer, co-founder and director of Prodigy Leadership Academy. Today we're going to be talking about our 4-day school week, which is not something that a lot of schools do, that's for sure. Most schools are in session 5 days a week. So when people look at our school and they see the 4-day school week, they're like, why do you do that? So let's talk about that today.
Yeah, I will say that from the inception of Prodigy, from the beginning, there were 2 reasons for us to move from 5-day to 4-day. So we started 5-day, actually, but we realized that in order to accomplish what we needed to accomplish at the very beginning, we had to make it 4-day. So when I say out of necessity, it's because Amy and me, we were the 2 people, and we had a full-time volunteer. But it was really 3 of us with 19 students, and these were K through 8, kindergarten through 8th grade, and we had to do everything for the students. We were doing recess duty, we were the custodians, we were doing encore classes, we were leading field trips, we were just doing the whole thing. And we recognized quickly that for us to be able to accomplish all of that, as well as a life with 3 children of our own, that we had to have a 4-day school week in order to be able to accomplish all the educational requirements, as well as have some balance of life that wouldn't just burn us out immediately. And secondly, though, when I was in my previous teaching for the public schools, I recognized there was kind of a movement happening to lengthen the school day and extend the school year. And there was a idea that the more time children spent in school, the smarter they would be, or the better they would perform with their academics. But for me personally, because I think that family is really essential. I think that family is what makes up the fabric of our society. And I see that families right now are struggling in our country. We really need to make a strong effort, I think, to empower and strengthen the family unit. So again, for us, going to 4-day school week was also in part to look toward giving families more time together. And we know that, there are families doing everything that is encouraging, supportive, and nurturing for the child. And there are other families that are going through a variety of calamity and difficulty. And so sometimes that family situation is struggling. But we also believe that when that's happening, we need to be connected enough. We need to be relational enough that people can be honest about their situations so that they can actually experience support. So 4-day school week from the beginning for those reasons, for us as teachers to be able to manage project-based learning, whole child perspective, and all of the unique things that we provide. But also we wanted the children to have more time with their families.
So what you're saying is that students get actually a higher caliber of learning in those 4 days of school that they are here, and then they have more time with their families. So the teachers then have enough time to be able to plan for the project-based learning for the coming week, right? So can we talk a little bit about what Fridays look like for our teachers?
First of all, students are not required to come on Fridays, but we do have a Friday option. So for those parents that it creates a hardship for, which it does for some people, we do provide a Friday option that they can sign up for. There's a little extra fee with that because we have to hire people to manage it. The teachers on Friday, this to me is one of the most spectacular aspects of Prodigy. The teachers on Friday, they come for a half day, and they get that time to plan their lessons, to evaluate student growth and learning, also to arrange for community excursions, also parent communications. So there's so many things that teachers do on a Friday that is important for them. They have extra plan time. They collaborate with other teachers sometimes on special activities. And then we have a teacher meeting on Fridays, which is typically an hour or 2 hours.
And that's all the teachers.
That is all the lead teachers. And with that time, we just get to dig in deep. See, to me, the idea that the teacher is the one that sets the culture for the classroom, they set the tone. If the teacher is living in a way that is thriving and inspired, they're having a really great experience, they're enjoying themselves, if that teacher is in that mind frame when they teach, obviously that's going to really produce similar impact on the students. But teachers, we do so much, and we're oftentimes worn out. or going through life situations that are, bringing us, just draining us, I think. So if a teacher's going in there tired and, just struggling to make choices and decisions, and if they're feeling weary, and then that sets a tone for the class too. And it's not necessarily positive, even though the teacher wants it to be. So Fridays for us, we replenish. We pray for each other. We ask key questions. We get to really dig into which students in our class are thriving, which ones are struggling, and what are some ideas that we can share with each other that can increase the potential for all the children to be on their top level of learning. We also do something called a protocol, which is really figuring out how do we take project-based learning to the most wonderful opportunity for students to grow. So we discuss project-based learning options and where do we go in the community and what guest speakers are available. Project-based learning is different. I'd say that most people going into the education field, they might touch on what project-based learning is in their educational training, but digging in deep to how it works and why it's so effective, that takes a concerted effort.
Yeah, over like an extended period of time.
Yes.
Like it's an ongoing process.
Yes. In every teacher on our Friday meeting times, we all have certain things that we're trying to just go deeper and learn more about. How do we stay sharp? Learning the Prodigy way is a big deal. And I've been doing it now for 16 years. And Amy and I are the founders. But I'm telling you, I still sense that I'm only scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I have so much more to learn about how to differentiate, how to individualize the learning so that each child under my care is functioning at their top level. I have so much more to learn about parent involvement and how do we strategically involve parents as a true partner. And how do we create consistency with parents so that the children are getting the same type of support at school as they are at home, which means that that would be optimal growth. I mean, so many aspects of Prodigy that we're all still trying to understand. Because I think the idea of Prodigy really originated from prayer.
Yeah.
And I think that God revealed to us uh, the great ways that he likes to love and celebrate and support the growth of children. And so we're all still growing and learning. And Friday gives us an opportunity to dig in and uncover and go deeper.
Can you recall for me how much time for professional development and planning did you get as a public school teacher?
That's a really good question. I will say that when I was in public school, the schools did a great job trying to provide opportunities for us with professional development within the structure that they have and with the resources that they have available. But for me, many times the professional development was predetermined. It was sort of like, we've brought in this great speaker or this great material, and this will be presented to you, and then you will spend some time unpacking it and seeing how to apply it in the classroom, which is good. I mean, I'm saying there's nothing wrong with that. The thing, though, that I experience here at Prodigy that I would say is different is here we really get the autonomy. Each individual teacher gets a lot of autonomy.
Right.
But also as a program, I kind of think we're like a lab school. We have complete freedom to say, if something is working well for the child and for the teacher, let's do it more. Let's increase that.
And let's talk about it and share it with our other teachers.
Yes, let's see, how do we go further with it? How do we maximize it? If something is not working very well for a student or for a teacher, then we can pivot. We can say, well, what can we do differently? How can we revise this? So I think that autonomy is really marvelous. And when we get together on Fridays, that autonomy kicks in. We can really ask each other and explore what questions are most relevant to actually giving our students the best that we can. And to me, that's why people become teachers. They want to focus on how is this child doing under my care and how can I increase the benefits for this child. Everybody wants to teach. I mean, everybody goes into education, I think. They have that kind of heart. But many times what happens in a large standardized kind of system is that you lose some of that autonomy and that individual focus. And, you kind of have to go through the motions in some ways. And I've often heard teachers say that the pendulum swings. We do this, we put these types of materials in place, and everybody has to buy in, everybody has to do it. and then it goes in another direction. A lot of it might depend on the person who's in charge and what they favor. But teachers get, I think, sometimes demoralized a little bit for that because they know if I can just focus on each student in my class and what's best for that student, and if I can do that with support, then um, I'd be a fulfilled professional.
And I, as a recent college graduate, would just like to put emphasis on how much of a difference a teacher who's fired up, a teacher who's motivated and well rested, and
The teacher who's inspired.
yeah, so a teacher who's inspired and regularly replenished, they they bring such a different feel to a classroom. I had a specific subject in college. My first year at the University of Missouri, I was in an honors humanities class over ancient Greek literature. And I took the class because because it worked with my schedule. But the teacher ended up cultivating such an interest in me that I ended up taking further classes in that subject. And I had some stuff like that in high school too, because I went to a public high school. And whenever I had a teacher who was really on fire and inspired and full of energy, it really brought a new level of life to that subject. On the flip side, I could have had classes that I was interested in, and if the teacher wasn't, then it really took away from that. So we really want to hammer that home that a big part of the reason we do this 4-day school week is because our teachers are able to bring such a different caliber of energy and motivation to the classroom because they have this Friday to every week to plan and collaborate and then they have the weekend to rest. So having that designated work time to prepare for the coming week and to work with one another and to pray, to take it back to the Lord, it really just provides such an amazing way for them to go into the next week.
Because of a 4-day school week, the days are longer. So we go from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., where most schools might call it a end of day at 2:40 or 2:45 or 3 o'clock or 3:15. So our days are longer for Monday through Thursday. But this is actually another tremendous benefit for us because we do project-based learning. We also have more time outside in nature. We also get out into the community on a frequent basis. We provide students with opportunities to explore their interests. And I think this extra long afternoon for us is key for that. And our teachers and students, they will get so immersed in these kinds of afternoon activities that
That extra hour makes a big difference.
they need it. And when 4 o'clock rolls around, or let's say 3:40 when they kick into their chores to clean up the classroom and all that, when the end of day arrives for us, many times the teachers and students have the sense that, oh, I was ex- enjoying myself and I still have so much more to do. So the longer afternoons, I would say that for us, it's pretty essential for the kind of unique learning experiences that we provide. I have an interest in you though because you experienced as a student a 4-day school week and also went from that to a 5-day school week when you went to public school. What what was that difference like for you?
When I was in the 5-day school week at the public schools, even though the day ended earlier, immediately after I would have my extracurricular activities. So I played soccer, I ran track, which are both things that I very much enjoyed. That being said, a lot of times I wouldn't get home till 5:30 or later. And then that's 5 days a week. And frequently then I would also have sporting events on like Saturday or something. So it really just didn't leave a ton of time for family time, especially considering I still wanted to be able to spend time with my friends and such.
The idea of having the fifth day for family connect time for Prodigy, it really is that. There was one year that we tried to go to a 5-day school week, and we made the shift. We switched to 5 days at the beginning of that year, and we kind of had an outcry from some parents, and so we did a school-wide vote, and we created a questionnaire and sent it out to all the parents, and the overwhelming response was, we want the 4-day school week. So even though it might create a few challenges for a few parents, what they often do is they get creative and they find solutions so the children might end up spending that Friday with a grandparent Or sometimes the parents will cooperate with each other and have play dates, or they'll have an arrangement so that one parent supervises the children on one Friday and another one the other Friday. Some of them hire babysitters or nannies, which might also be a Prodigy high school student who's now getting some, I think, valuable experience looking after a young person. So what we discovered here is that parents love that time. They really want it. They value it. And again, I think that says something important. The decline of families across our country, probably everyone feels that. Parents, they love the children. They want to spend quality time with the children. And having more opportunity to go on a 3-day camping trip on a weekend or doing something special like that, that's a gift for our families.
I was about to say that because when you're in the traditional school setting, you have to pretty much be coming back into town on Sunday. You have to be wrapping up whatever, weekend excursion or whatever. Not that, people do that every weekend by any means, but I remember in the public school setting when we were at the 5-day weeks, we had to, like, as a family, the only times that we could go out and away were if we had a holiday. And with this setting, with the 4-day school week, it's even with us as working on Fridays, we still have half of Friday. So we can go out for a little camping trip and have some really good quality family time and rejuvenation by the time that we roll back into the next school week.
And I think again, we cannot emphasize enough the importance of teachers having a work-life balance that is good for them. They are professionals. They're making thousands of decisions every day about their students. Their mind is going at such a rapid pace. And especially at Prodigy, they're focused on the biological, the psychological, the social, the spiritual development of their students. And that is tremendous. That's a huge responsibility. And if we have teachers who are depleted and burned out, tired, they won't do as well for the students. And so that's simply a strategic recognition that we want to give our teachers an ideal situation with more of their own family balance so they can also be at the top of their ability.
And you said earlier that most people who go into education do so with a desire to help young people grow, but a burned out teacher, like, it's really sad to see that desire die away like that.
I'd say, yeah, it's like a downward spiral. It's very demoralizing for a teacher to know I want to be the best for my students. And yet I have all these internal struggles that I'm not even finding the time and the opportunity to navigate and to process in a way that's healthy and good.
Right.
And so if that teacher is feeling like I'm always failing because I'm never at my best to support my students, well, then that just becomes just really can drain that teacher quickly. And I think it's why in the profession, if you look at the statistics, it's a vast number of teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years. They just realize this is way too much for me to balance and carry. They think I don't get paid enough for this. I can't support my family. And the time demands, I don't have time for anything else because they spend all their time outside of school planning and preparing and evaluating and doing all this stuff.
Right.
I would say, too, that we don't want to miss this point. If we don't give the students adequate time to connect with their own family and adequate time to pursue their own talent and skill development, because young people they are come predisposed, or I believe God designed, with certain interests. And if we don't give them some opportunities to pursue those interests, then we may be working against the very things that can help that young person be at their best. And I think that that 4-day school week gives the students more time and opportunity to make the most of who they are with their talents and with their skills, and also with their time. They need to learn how to manage time. And if all of the time is already managed and predetermined for the children, they're not getting practice learning time management. So this is another thing that we do strategically is give them opportunities to learn. How do you manage time? How do you set goals? How do you accomplish your goals? How do you reevaluate and recognize if you're off?
I guess one concern maybe is that students who have a long weekend may just spend that weekend playing video games or something like that.
It's a good point. You bring up a very valid point that we have thought about carefully. and we recognize that this could happen. With that Friday out of school, can students misuse their time? Can they waste time? Certainly. Certainly they can. Who is in charge of that child? Well, I think it boils down to this. Number one, parents are the primary influence in the life of the child. They are, in fact, the number one teacher of the child. And as professionals, we want to come alongside the parents. So I think Fridays give the parent more influence, more opportunity to determine what is my child doing with the time that is worthwhile. And then there's also the recognition that the child has to take some ownership. They have to learn that if I'm making choices that are beneficial and good for myself, I experience the fulfillment and the reward that comes with making these choices.
Right.
And if I waste my time, I experience something that feels like burnout. I feel bad about wasting my time. And again, I think it's one of those things that they have to have the opportunity to do it, to recognize it. If we determine all of their time, all of their schedule, then when are they learning how to manage their time and how to make the most of it? Or when are they experiencing the consequences of making poor choices and seeing the impact of that?
So one thing you said there is that the parent is the primary influence on the child.
Yes.
And so this 4-day school week, again, with our emphasis on the family structure being so important and us having seen influence over children gradually continue to shift, well, towards the government really, and away from families and even individual teachers.
We could say institutional versus family. I
Right.
think is a good way to say it.
That's a good way to say it, yeah. And so, again, this 4-day school model kind of is handing the reins back to individual teachers and to parents and families, which for some people is definitely an adjustment, but certainly in the long run, and a lot of times very quickly, you parents and certainly our teachers realize how much better it is this way.
You're helping me think about something that I have considered, but I'm seeing it kind of more clearly now. It seems to me like in our government schools, in our standardized school system approach, it's almost like we start with the notion that people won't make the best use of their time. Therefore, we need to manage it for them.
It's removing that sense of trust
Yeah.
and responsibility also.
And even with the idea that we have to constantly watch the children, what does that convey to the child? It conveys we don't trust you, and we have to constantly have eyes on you, or you'll be up to something that is not good. And then I think people are inclined to do this thing where they live up to the expectations. So if the expectation on the student or on the teacher, which means, let's say the teacher as a professional, instead of being trusted to do their job in the best way, and then we want to serve and support them, if the notion is, well, teacher, we don't know if you're going to make the most of your time with your students, so we're going to predetermine what that looks like. Well, then again, they live according to those expectations, potentially. So I think here at Prodigy, we do a good job of starting with the idea, student, you're here to make the most of who you are, and we're going to support you as you do it. And teacher, you're here to make the most of your opportunity to benefit and encourage and nurture the growth of your students. And you're a professional, and we're going to support you as you do it. And when we start with that perspective, then it gives these wonderful people the opportunity to rise to the occasion.
Well, that's awesome. And I think that's a great note to end on. To all our listeners, I hope you've learned so much today about one of our Prodigy 21 here. This was our 4-day school week. Definitely something that's unique at Prodigy compared to other schools. Dad, thanks so much for being here, for joining me.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.